In my view, the Trilateral Commission represents a skillful, coordinated effort to seize control and consolidate the four centers of power: political, monetary, intellectual, and ecclesiastical. What the Trilaterals truly intend is the creation of a worldwide economic power superior to the political governments of the nation-states involved. As managers and creators of the system, they will rule the future. Senator Barry Goldwater, in his 1979 memoirs With No Apologies. Some even believe we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and of conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure, one world, if you will. If that is the charge, I stand guilty, and I am proud of it. David Rockefeller, founder of the Trilateral Commission, in his 2002 autobiography Memoirs. To ideologues on the left end of the political spectrum, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP, is an evil deal fashioned by corrupt corporate interests. As such, it illustrates perfectly, in their narrative, the wickedness of capitalism. Democratic presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders, a long-time avowed socialist, leads these anti-TPP forces, backed by an extensive lineup of progressives, such as Senator Elizabeth Warren, Professor Noam Chomsky, consumer activist Ralph Nader, Democracy Now!'s Amy Goodman, AFL-CIO President Richard Trumka, and many more. Supporters of the TPP on the right-leaning side of the spectrum claim that the long-awaited agreement will advance free markets and free trade, and will, therefore, promote more business, more jobs, and more prosperity. And they point to the motley assortment of Marxists, socialists, communists, and liberal progressives opposing the agreement as proof that the TPP must be good. Although the anti-TPP forces of the left are wrong on many points, especially when it comes to alternatives and solutions, which always seem to involve more government intervention, that is, more socialism, they are correct in seeing the TPP as a sellout to Wall Street. However, Wall Street is not synonymous with, nor should it be confused with, free market capitalism. The Wall Street moguls and corporate behemoths that worked behind closed doors with the Bush and Obama administrations to fashion the TPP are not free marketeers. They are properly called state capitalists or corporatist fascists. They promote public-private partnerships, PPPs, not open competition in the marketplace. They rely on these corrupt, special partnerships with government to provide themselves with subsidies, contracts, favors, and privileges, at the taxpayer's expense. In the left's analysis, this is purely and simply corporate greed, which, they assert, is naturally encouraged and rewarded by capitalism. However, what the leftist critics miss, some unwittingly, others intentionally, is that the TPP process would simply distribute wealth and power via government, as they have requested continually, and that avarice for worldly lucre is only part of the equation behind the movement for the TPP and other similar politico-economic arrangements. The real agenda behind the TPP is to consolidate and centralize economic and political power. An agenda, that is, a plan, a program, presupposes some organizing entity that originates it. The main organizing entity behind the TPP agenda is the secretive, elite Trilateral Commission, which the late Barry Goldwater referred to as David Rockefeller's newest cabal. It is intended to be, said the former Republican Party presidential candidate and author of Conscience of a Conservative, the vehicle for multinational consolidation of the commercial and banking interests by seizing control of the political government of the United States. According to Goldwater, freedom, spiritual, political, economic, is denied any importance in the trilateral construction of the next century. We are now well into the next century, and the trilateral construction the Arizona Solon warned about is proceeding at a furious pace. The TPP, the current chief project in that construction phase, had its origins in the 1970s, as one of the earliest schemes of that Rockefeller secret cabal. Starting big. The Trilateral Commission, TC, is a private organization founded in 1973 by international banker David Rockefeller, shown at top, who was its first chairman and remains the honorary chairman today. At the time, Rockefeller hired Polish-born Columbia University professor Zbigniew Brzezinski to set up the new organization. Brzezinski would bring a then little-known Georgia governor, Jimmy Carter, into the TC and tutor him to be the next president of the United States. Once in the Oval Office, Carter brought his mentor, Brzezinski, in as his national security advisor. And he proceeded to fill his cabinet and other key administrative posts with TC members, as well as members of the Commission's sister organization, the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR. At its first meeting in Tokyo in 1973, the TC Executive Committee issued a founding declaration that declared, "Growing interdependence is a fact of life of the contemporary world. It transcends and influences national systems. It requires new and more intensive forms of international cooperation to realize its benefits and to counteract economic and political nationalism." The declaration further stated the group's goal to bring about greater interdependence and cooperation among the three trilateral regions of the world: Japan, Western Europe, and North America. The group's elite membership now includes, according to its website, about 390 distinguished citizens from Europe, North America, and Pacific Asia, with key members from Pacific Rim, TPP, nations now joining the Japanese members. The growing interdependence that so impressed the founders of the Trilateral Commission in the early 1970s has deepened into globalization, says the TC on its About web page. That interdependence also has ensured that the enduring effects of the financial crisis that began in 2008 has, been felt in every nation and region. It has fundamentally shaken confidence in the international system as a whole. And, naturally, the TC magnanimously offers its leadership in this hour of need, stating, "Our conviction has strengthened that the Commission remains more important than ever in helping our countries fulfill their shared leadership responsibilities in the wider international system." Of course, anyone remotely familiar with details of the aforementioned financial crisis will recognize the many personal and institutional ties of the TC elites to the banking machinations that brought the crisis about: Rockefeller, Rothschild, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, the European Central Bank, the Federal Reserve, the International Monetary Fund, etc. Among those TC members officially and openly representing the fabulously wealthy and powerful Rothschild dynasty, for example, are Nigel Higgins, Chief Executive of the Rothschild Group, London, Alfonso Cortina, Vice Chairman of Rothschild Europe, and Panagis Vlumis, Senior Advisor of NM Rothschild. All three of these Rothschild agents are also members of the TC Executive Committee. Representing the Rockefeller Empire, besides David Rockefeller, founder and honorary chairman, are Henry Kissinger, chairman of Kissinger Associates Incorporated, former U.S. Secretary of State, longtime Rockefeller family protégé and advisor and lifetime trustee of the Trilateral Commission, Reuben Jeffrey III, Chief Executive Officer of Rockefeller Financial, and some 24 David Rockefeller Fellows at strategic law firms, think tanks, and universities. Among the many other Americans of note on the TC membership roll is Richard Haass, President of the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR. The CFR, represented by Haass, is actually the parent organization of the TC, and many of the U.S. members of the TC are also CFR members. David Rockefeller was also chairman of the CFR when he founded the TC. And by the way, U.S. Trade Representative Michael Froman, who negotiated the TPP for the United States, is on the TC roster as a former member in public service. So are U.S. National Security Advisors Susan Rice and Federal Reserve System Vice Chair Stanley Fischer. You get the picture. But, hey, just because they are a bunch of high-powered individuals who meet in secret, rotate in and out of public office, and devise grand world order schemes that become international public policy and that inherently involve huge conflicts of interest. Don't let that cause you to jump to conclusions. That's a sure way to get yourself labeled a conspiracy theorist. Labeled by whom? Well, by the same CFR/TC-aligned corporate media that support the TPP and have kept the TC/CFR globalist agenda hidden for so many decades. At the June 1991 Bilderberg Group meeting in Baden-Baden, Germany, David Rockefeller acknowledged this indispensable role played by the journalists of the establishment media that cover up and propagandize for the One World agenda. We are grateful to the Washington Post, the New York Times, Time magazine and other great publications whose directors have attended our meetings and respected their promises of discretion for almost 40 years, he stated. It would have been impossible for us to develop our plan for the world, he continued, if we had been subjected to the lights of publicity during those years. But, the world is more sophisticated and prepared to march towards a world government. The supranational sovereignty of an intellectual elite and world bankers is surely preferable to the national autodetermination practiced in past centuries. This was David Rockefeller, past chairman of the CFR and TC, as well as a steering committee member of the ultra-secretive, uber-elite Bilderberg Group. However, unlike his admission, or boast, in his memoirs cited at the head of this article, this earlier admission was not intended for public consumption. Fortunately for us, officers of French intelligence were able to attend the event, record the statement, and leak it to 2 French publications, thereby confirming what we already knew to be true from years of observation of the incestuous relationship among top media executives, publishers, and reporters, and the CFR/TC, Bilderberg elites. One of the internationalists who operated both as an insider strategist, as well as a key publicist, propagandist in this bit-by-bit, era-by-era strategy, was the famous British historian and author Arnold J. Toynbee. In addition to being a professor at the London School of Economics, he was Director of Studies at the Royal Institute for International Affairs, RIA, the British sister organisation of the CFR, for 3 decades. 1925 to 1955, and editor of its journal, International Affairs. In a speech in 1931 in Copenhagen, Toynbee delivered one of the most stunning public admissions by a top member of the One World elite. He candidly declared, "I will merely repeat that we are at present working, discreetly but with all our might, to wrest this mysterious political force called sovereignty out of the clutches of the local national states of our world. And all the time we are denying with our lips what we are doing with our hands, because to impugn the sovereignty of the local national states of the world is still a heresy for which a statesman or a publicist can be, perhaps not quite burnt at the stake, but certainly ostracized and discredited." Emphasis added. Convergence of East and West. In 1973, David Rockefeller, the arch-capitalist, was welcomed to Communist China by Mao Zedong, the arch-communist, dictator, and mass murderer. Upon his return, Rockefeller penned an essay for the New York Times entitled From a China Traveler. One is impressed immediately by the sense of national harmony, the banker said of Mao's deadly gulag. There is a very real and pervasive dedication to Chairman Mao and Maoist principles, he continued. According to Rockefeller, whatever the price of the Chinese Revolution, it has obviously succeeded not only in producing more efficient and dedicated administration, but also in fostering high morale and community purpose. The social experiment in China under Chairman Mao's leadership is one of the most important and successful in history. David Rockefeller, Henry Kissinger, Zbigniew Brzezinski, and their fellow CFR/TC, Bilderberg internationalists began then, in the 1970s, to translate their schemes into the political and economic policies that resulted in the massive transfers of American capital and technology to transform China from a pathetic third world basket case into a first world economic and military power. Now they are moving to implement the next phase, enact and implement the TPP, which would later be expanded to converge with Communist China in the already announced free trade area of the Asia